You know, country music is somebody done me wrong songs. You know, somebody broke my heart. You went off and left me. You just listen to all the lyrics of those songs, and it's sad. You know, it's sad. Well, I guess bluegrass is bluegrass because it's blue. You know, Irish ballads are so often about murders and other dark subjects. You know, it's just country gospel singer Johnny Cash knew this dark side of life quite well. His roots went back to Scotland in those dark ballads. He was descended from William Cash, who lived in Scotland in the 17th century. Now, Johnny Cash bore the scars of hard living, trouble with the law, and drug addiction. He sang of the sin and brokenness of a fallen world. His honesty about his own sinfulness reached out to those hurting from spiritual emptiness. Though he professed Christ at age 12, Cash wrote that by 1967, this was in his autobiography, there was nothing left of me. I drifted so far away from God and every stabilizing force in my life that I felt there was no hope. He finally decided to crawl into Nickajack Cave on the Tennessee River, get lost, and die. The absolute lack of light was appropriate, he wrote. My separation from God, the deep kind of loneliness I'd felt over the years, seemed finally complete, but it wasn't. I thought I'd left him, but he hadn't left me. I felt something very powerful start to happen in me, a sensation of utter peace, clarity, and sobriety. My mind started focusing on God. I became conscious of a very clear, simple idea. I was not in charge of my own life. I was not in charge of my own death. Feeling God was reaching out to him, though he was so lost he didn't know his way out of the cave, he started crawling until, miraculously really, he came back out to the light, body and soul. His own redemption illustrated the healing power of Christ to an audience of millions. Like Jesus, who shared meals with prostitutes and tax collectors, Johnny Cash carried a message of hope to the most despised members of society, including the robbers and rapists and murderers of San Quentin and Folsom prisons. He never shot a man in Reno, you may have thought he did, and was never sentenced to Folsom Prison. But he did write Folsom Prison Blues in 1953 about the sad life there. He sang gospel songs of hope to thousands of prisoners, like Peace in the Valley. In his own composition about Christ, he turned the water into wine. Cash wore black to identify with those whose pain he shared. His own pain in relationship to God was central to his music. Although Cash continued to enjoy huge professional success, something more important brought him meaning and satisfaction. He summed it up in his autobiography this way: the greatest joy of my life was that I no longer felt separated from God. Now he is my counselor, my rock of ages to stand on. Johnny Cash married June Cash in 1968, a marriage that lasted until her death in May of 2003. Johnny died a few months later. He reaffirmed his faith at Hank Snow's Son's Church in Nashville and was ordained a pastor in the early 1980s and was a good friend with Billy Graham, sitting on stage with Graham at a number of the crusades. When looking at the life of Johnny Cash, we see a normal man revealed in the life of this superstar. Cash was not perfect. No one is. And becoming a Christian doesn't change that. Cash continued to struggle with addiction, marriage problems, and the dark side of his life. Life is not a fairy tale, and a happily ever after rarely describes the final chapters of any person's story. The struggles Cash had with the temptations of this life often came back to haunt him, but he had something to hold on to in what he had found in Jesus Christ. One way to understand his journey is in the words he often sang: "Because you're mine, I walk the line." That was Johnny Cash.